There was a time in America when you could spend an entire day without leaving your car. You could eat breakfast in your car, get married in your car, go to church, cash a check, see a movie, and still have gas left for the drive home. Between the 1940s and the 1970s, drive-in didn't just mean movies, it was a lifestyle, a symbol of a mobile, modern, and optimistic America that saw the automobile not as a tool, but as an extension of oneself. The drive-in phenomenon was born at the crossroads of post-war prosperity, suburban expansion, and a deep cultural love affair with the automobile. But like so many mid-century dreams, it faded, undone by changing technology, urban planning, and shifting societal norms. The story begins in Camden, New Jersey in 1933. A man named Richard Hollingshead Jr., who was a sales manager for his father's auto supply company, had an idea. He set up a movie projector on the hood of his car, hung a white sheet between two trees, and parked another car about 40 feet away. He wanted to see if he could create a theater experience for people who didn't like traditional movie houses. His mother, for instance, thought theater seats were uncomfortable. After some tinkering, including experimenting with ramps so cars in the back could see over the ones in the front, Hollingshead patented the idea. That June, he opened the world's first drive-in theater, charging 25 cents per car and 25 cents per person. The slogan was simple: the whole family is welcome, regardless of how noisy the children are. It wasn't a huge success at first. Most early drive-ins struggled with sound. Speakers mounted on towers meant the back rows could barely hear, while the front rows got blasted. But the seed was planted, and when technology caught up, the idea would bloom. When World War II ended, America changed overnight. Suburbs exploded outward from cities like Los Angeles, Detroit, and Chicago, and families wanted space, cars, and leisure. Between 1945 and 1960, car ownership doubled. The new interstate highways made travel easier, and for the first time, middle-class families had disposable income and time for entertainment. Drive-ins became the perfect fit for this new lifestyle. You could load the kids into the station wagon, skip the babysitter, and have an inexpensive night out. You could smoke, talk, or sneak in your own snacks. The drive-in was a blend of movie theater, picnic ground, and teenage hangout. By the 1950s, the drive-in had become a cultural icon. In 1948, there were fewer than 1,000 drive-ins in America. 10 years later, there were over 4,000. They stretched from California to Maine, covering every small town and suburban fringe. The architecture was wild and inventive, from massive neon marquees shaped like rockets to huge palm trees or giant movie screens visible from the highway. Many drive-ins had playgrounds, concession stands that looked like diners, and even small petting zoos. A few went all in on the spectacle. The Johnny All-Weather Drive-In in Copeg, New York could hold 2,500 cars and included a restaurant, laundromat, and indoor lounge for bad weather. For teenagers, the drive-in was a ritual. It was where you learned to drive, to flirt, and rebel. Hollywood caught on, and films like Rebel Without a Cause and The Blob cemented the drive-in as the perfect backdrop for restless youth and small-town drama. The drive-in spirit quickly escaped the movie lot and seeped into almost every corner of American life. Businesses realized the appeal of convenience and the thrill of the automobile. By the mid-1950s, there were drive-in diners, drive-in banks, drive-in churches, and even drive-in funeral homes. At the Pig Stand in Texas, which is often credited as America's first drive-in restaurant, waiters and waitresses called car hops delivered burgers and milkshakes to your window on roller skates. In Las Vegas, you could say "I do" without ever unbuckling your seatbelt at a drive-in wedding chapel. Even churches got in on the action. In some southern towns, Sunday sermons were broadcast over loudspeakers to congregants sitting respectfully in their cars. This was an era obsessed with mobility and modernism. Drive-ins represented freedom, individualism, and a uniquely American form of socialization. As drive-ins multiplied, they developed their own cinematic culture. While traditional theaters premiered big studio pictures, drive-ins leaned into B-movies, low-budget horror flicks, monster movies, biker dramas, and teenage rebellion tales. Studios like American International Pictures churned out titles tailor-made for the drive-in crowd, with movies like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and Beach Blanket Bingo. These films didn't need pristine sound or subtle performances, they needed bold posters and quick thrills. The double feature format became standard, and carloads of teens lined up for late-night screenings that promised equal parts entertainment and escape. Drive-ins also reflected the anxieties of the era. The Cold War, nuclear fear, and social change all found expression in those flickering outdoor screens. Aliens and mutants weren't just monsters, they were metaphors for a world that seemed to be mutating faster than people could comprehend. But even as drive-ins reached their peak, their downfall was already beginning. Several forces conspired against them, slowly but surely reshaping the American landscape. The number one reason is real estate. Drive-ins required huge plots of land, often 10 to 15 acres. As suburbs grew denser and property values rose in the 1960s and 70s, it became far more profitable to sell that land for shopping centers or housing developments than to keep it as a seasonal theater. Number two, technology. In 1970, the average color TV cost less than $500, and cable networks began offering movies right in your living room. VHS followed in the 80s, and suddenly, people didn't need to leave the home to watch films. The drive-in's biggest advantage, convenience, evaporated. And number three, culture. As youth culture changed, so did leisure habits. The car was no longer the same symbol of rebellion and romance it had been in the 1950s. Rising gas prices, new environmental consciousness, and stricter zoning laws made it harder to operate outdoor theaters. By the late 1980s, fewer than 200 drive-ins remained in operation across the U.S. The glowing marquees that had once lit up the night now stood dark, their signs resting beside empty fields. And yet, the drive-in never completely died. It just went underground, waiting for nostalgia to catch up. In the 1990s and 2000s, retro culture and classic car enthusiasts began reviving old sites. Families rediscovered the simple pleasure of a summer night under the stars, with new technology making it easier with things like digital projection, FM radio sound, and even pop-up drive-ins using inflatable screens in parking lots. Then, in 2020, something unexpected happened. The COVID-19 pandemic shuttered traditional theaters, and suddenly, drive-ins were relevant again. People flocked back to these open-air cinemas for socially distanced entertainment. New drive-ins opened for the first time in decades, while parking lots transformed into temporary theaters. For a brief moment, the drive-in once again felt like the perfect American solution: safe, communal, and adaptable. Today, only around 300 traditional drive-in theaters remain in the United States, mostly family-run and proudly local, but their cultural shadow looms large. Drive-ins are more than nostalgia. They're a mirror reflecting how Americans have balanced privacy and community, technology and togetherness. In the 1950s, they symbolized optimism, a belief that technology and leisure could coexist harmoniously. But their decline also tells the other side of the story, how suburban growth, land speculation, and screen technology slowly dismantled shared public experiences. When cars became too expensive to love and movies too convenient to leave home for, the drive-in became obsolete. Even if most drive-ins are gone, their imagery endures. Movies like Grease, American Graffiti, and The Outsiders immortalize them as symbols of youthful freedom. Musicians from Bruce Springsteen to the Beach Boys celebrated the romance of headlights and the big screen. From the first experiment in a New Jersey backyard to the massive screens that lit up the post-war night, the drive-in defined a generation's relationship with freedom. Its decline reminds us that progress always comes with trade-offs. Convenience can isolate as easily as it can connect. Still, the spirit of the drive-in lives on with the few that remain.